All right. Hello and welcome to the Coaching Conversation podcast. This is your host, Salah Elleithy, and I'm joined today by Kerri Sutey. Kerri is a coach, facilitator, and a consultant. She's a former Forbes Coaches Council member and an ICF certified coach, fellow ICF Professional Certified Coach. Kerri, I am really happy to have you today. Welcome.
Thank you, Salah. It's great to be here.
I want to first ask you about your story. I usually ask every guest, what's your story? How did you end up doing the work you're doing? And so we can start there.
When I think about my story, I think the one thing that sort of grounds it is invitations and saying yes to them.
Hmm.
So I I started my career in the space of like program project management, that sort of thing. And actually, I'll step back just very quickly. I was a paralegal at first because I thought, "Ooh, maybe I'd want to be an attorney one day." So I was a paralegal. I was working at Dell, and and I was working doing a lot of like reviews of marketing materials. Did they meet the government requirements of how you market, promotions and things like that? And the product teams that I worked super closely with, I got an invitation from them of, will you come and join our team and be a project manager, a program manager, and get out of legal. And I knew I didn't want to be a lawyer. And so that was kind of the first big invitation I got of, would you consider switching your careers and doing something different? And I said, yeah, let's do it. And so it was then working, at Dell, and then I moved into Booz Allen Hamilton. So I've kind of spanned large companies and consultancies. And when I went to work at Booz Allen Hamilton, they not only was I working in the agile space, so introduced to agile, how do you expand being a project manager into the world of like a scrum master and looking at how we work and work differently. And in that process, Booz Allen Hamilton was creating their first set agile coaches. And I was invited again. Hey, we recognize that you have these coaching skills. Would you be interested in getting trained as an agile coach? And I didn't even realize that coaching was like a profession outside of
Yeah.
sports. And so
Right.
I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I like this. I like working with people and teams. And so I said yes. And so in addition to the project work, then I got trained as an agile coach and then got to start working with teams, which I loved. And then over time, I went to work. I was at IBM, and the CMO of analytics, they were going through a big agile marketing transformation. And as he said, he knew marketing, I knew agile, and would I be interested in being his chief of staff? And that he would teach me the nuances of marketing if I could teach him the nuances of agile and agile ways, not just agile ways of working, but the mindset that we anchor
Hmm.
so much in. So again, an invitation, and that then kind of led me beyond the scope of teams and into the world of vice presidents, C-suite, and organization design. So more that enterprise view of the world of agile. And in that role, I really took on a lot more coaching, more of that professional coaching that you know right along with me, which I loved. And so anyway, and then from there just continued to progress and advance. I worked at Google for a couple of years, and now I'm out on my own. But in so many of those pivotal moments, it was an invitation that came my way of, hey, we see this quality in you. Would you be willing to step into a different role? And I'm so grateful I said yes, because that's
Wow.
what's really led me to where I am today. I'm grateful for it.
I love that word, invitation. I mean, the theme that you're describing, invitation and saying yes to invitations. A lot of times we don't know what we're gonna sign up for or what we're gonna get into, but
Yeah.
yes can be a way to explore further and make progress in our journey. I think invitation may be a great word to start with because I know that you recently published your book and it is sort of align with what the meetings are practically invitations to come together and create something. So first, congratulations on your book, the Clear the Way. Again, I really love the title, and the subtitle you have is Saving the World One Meeting at a Time. So that's yeah,
Being
that's
a
a
little cheeky in that. Yeah.
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 So what inspired you to write the book? I mean, that's probably the most obvious question.
Yeah. No, it's a great question. I think that not only since I've been out on my own, but even before that, in the different companies that I worked at, it was not only what I saw happening in meetings and to the people around me, but even what I felt being a part of them. It's a common challenge that everyone has, and that is we're in constant meetings. I, I've heard people say before, like, oh, maybe COVID really pushed us into the space of meetings. I think it was always there. I think meetings have been the place where work can happen. But unfortunately, the culture of meetings has just, I don't know, people are in back-to-back meetings. Anytime you talk to anybody, one of the things they're going to complain about is the number of meetings they're in, how ineffective they are, how it takes up too much of their time, they can't get work done. And so this idea of bringing everyone together to collaborate, to work on something, to focus on something in a meeting, especially now in our world where we're hybrid, we're remote, we've got also in person, but it spans the types there of how we're meeting. It's so important to get it right. Otherwise, people feel so drained. And I think that bleeds into their happiness at work, their engagement at
Mhm.
work. Like Gallup just recently put out some state of the world work on engagement. I can't remember the exact numbers, but it was like people are just disengaged at work. And a part of that, I think, comes from how we use or value people's time and the way we show up in meetings and the way we design meetings. Are we designing intentionally? Are we designing for clarity? Or are we just going through the motions? We need to have a team meeting. We're going to have the team meeting. And so therefore they become ineffective. And it was just this constant pattern I saw. And so when I went out on my own, I thought, you know what, this is a great time to put pen to paper and share what I think could help change that. And it's not like it's a snap of the fingers, instant, like let's make it so great. But I think there are steps people can take that to make their world a little better. We don't have to accept that this is the way it has to be. I think we can change our meeting cultures and change them for the better and get our time back.
Meeting seems to be sort of a unit of or a factor of how organizations operate overall. We both work in change and trying to help teams and companies change the way they work. But at the same time, meeting seems to be one of the culprits that doesn't change for some reason. Still, we operate the same way when we meet. We come together not knowing why we're coming to the meeting. We walk away not knowing what
Yeah.
did we do in this meeting or why was it scheduled to begin with. So how is it that we're still, I mean, 2026 and we have a lot has changed, but the meetings are still happening the same way that we've always run meetings.
I'll share with you some of the things that I think caused that. And I'd love to hear too, kind of what you're in your own experience, what you're seeing. But oftentimes I think it is people say, we don't have time. We don't have time to change it. So even
Mm-hmm.
like in my book, Clear the Way. So clear is the framework. There's some simple steps that I say, hey, we need to be looking at these 5 things before we have a meeting. Well, that takes a few minutes. It's not an instant. Whereas sending the invite is instant and I can get that to do off my list and I can move on. Well, we need to have a team meeting every week. Let's schedule it. Let's move on. And I can get back because I'm so busy in all these meetings. I'm so busy. I need time to focus, etc. And that idea of slowing down and being thoughtful and designing for the clarity that we need. I think there's an assumption of I don't have time for that
Mm-hmm.
and therefore I don't do it. Or we've always had this team meeting, therefore we should always, we should continue. Taking the time, pausing means I have to slow down for a minute, even though I think most people realistically know that if we took a pause and really thought about and did an audit of our meetings and found the ones that were most effective and actually redesigned them, it might take us a few minutes up front not
Hmm.
hours, but a few minutes up front, the result and the impact could be huge. You'd save 8 minutes a week or 10 minutes a week, even in meetings. That adds up over time. And that can just grow the more that people start to see, hey, we can do this differently. But we don't do it. And I often think it feels like I don't have the time. I don't have the time to pause
Mm.
and to be intentional. And therefore, I just go through the motions because there's so much coming at me with work, with demands, that I don't have time to be thoughtful about the multitude of meetings I spend my time in. What do you see?
I see the same patterns. There's no time to slow down and look at how our meetings are being run, but even the why we're having the meetings to begin with, right? So it's like we have this meeting that has been going on for some time, and we are used to it now, and we attend, everyone talk about some things, and then we we're done, but we don't know why we're having the meeting. You know, there's this joke that this meeting could have been an email, right? So, so a
Exactly.
lot of times we have these meetings that could be just something that could be shared in an email or a message. But
Yeah.
because we've had that meeting on the calendar for so long, it's almost like when we hear people saying, we've always done it that way, or that's how we've always done it. But this is the meeting that we've always had, so we're not gonna, we're continuing to have it, even though now it doesn't have any purpose or clear goal, right?
Yeah. I think I was telling you before, there's a Microsoft Trend Index report that showed workers are interrupted, every 2 minutes by
Hmm.
meetings, emails, notifications. 62% of workers are attending meetings where the goal isn't stated in the invite. They're not sure why they're there. Over 50% of people would say they leave meetings unclear of what's the next step, what's ownership look like. It's staggering when you start to put, data points behind it,
Hmm.
that, okay, well, then we're losing probably 40-50% of focus time because we're in meetings, and then those meetings where work should happen is not happening. And so, it's like, how do we change that? And I believe it can be changed. So I would just say that while there's a lot of data points to the negative, we can change that. We can make it better. We don't have to live in this world where, we don't give ourselves the time and space to use our time in a meaningful way, to collaborate more, to work on what's most important, to get the work done in the meeting, so I don't have to go find time to do the work after the meetings, at the end of the day or in the evening when it's my family time, or so I think there's ways to make that better.
I am hopeful as far as, a lot of a lot of companies, they want to change things, and they usually think of drastic changes when there are really some simple changes that they could make that could potentially provide big impacts, like you were saying about like meetings, for example. We have a lot of meetings during the day and during the week, during the month. These, they add up and they cost a lot of amount of money and fund and budget that could be channeled or used elsewhere. I'm curious, I think maybe one, to explore the framework that you came up with as far as the clear how to change the meeting in a way that make it more fulfilling, I guess. I mean, maybe that's a big aspiration to leave a meeting fulfilled. But at the same time, when I think of meeting, I think of a group of people coming to create something, and that something will help the group grow as a team or as a company overall. I usually, I coach one-on-one, as I know you also do, with leaders, and a lot of the times the leaders or the managers or even individual contributors who I work with, they're exhausted because of being in meetings most of the time. Some of the leaders also feel like they can't not attend the meetings. They have to be in every
Mhm.
meetings. And I usually ask them, why do you have to be in all meetings, right? You can,
Yes.
there's a button called decline. You can decline.
It's okay. Yeah.
But yeah, I think you probably, based on, getting writing this book and researching, you found some patterns, and we've already talked about some of the patterns, why people or teams don't change the way they run meetings, but there's hope. And
Yeah.
you wrote this book to not only share your experience and your wisdom with companies and with people who facilitate meetings, but also to give them a framework that they can use to make meetings better, or make these meetings matter, and not just a way to almost like sap the energy of
Yeah.
the group and of the ultimately the organization.
Yeah. Well, and my hope is that if people even use one or two elements of C.L.E.A.R, that they can find some of that, get back to turning meetings from conversations into actual progress, moving work forward in whatever way that they need to. So the C is clarify the purpose. Why are we here? Why are we coming together? If it's a team meeting, is it about focusing on prioritizing the work? Is it about supporting each other through things that are not moving forward? Is it actually getting to know each other so that we're aligned on communication, on development of our teams, whatever that may look like? Why are we coming together, even if it is just that team meeting? List the outcomes. So the number one thing I see is that if a meeting invite includes anything, it's often the bulleted list of agenda items.
Mm.
Agenda items are not the same thing as outcomes. You know this
Hmm.
from our world in the agile space and working with leaders. Agenda items are topics. Outcomes are what's going to be different after this meeting. What do we hope to accomplish so that when we leave this meeting, we've done, one or two things? And it doesn't need to be 10 things in 1 hour, because you're never going to get to that. But it
Hmm.
should be two or three things in that hour of what you think you're going to accomplish. What will be different when we leave? The E, engaging the right people. So as you were saying, who is truly needed in this meeting? And if your answer is, well, I just want to be nice, I should probably include, and whatever, the more the merrier. No.
Yeah.
Because again, you're not showing respect to that other person of, I respect your time and your need to focus on whatever it is that's a priority in your workday. Instead, these are the people who are the decision makers, the subject matter experts who can bring the data and the information we need to make decisions. These are the people that bring diverse perspectives so we can brainstorm and ideate to where we need to go. Who actually needs to be in the room? And if you're unsure, then just go through one or two meetings and start taking notice of who's talking. Because if it's only two or three people talking and there's 10 people on the call, you can follow up with notes, use AI, help
Hmm.
yourself,
Hmm.
follow up with notes, share that with the broader group, but don't feel I don't need to be nice and include 20 people when there's only three or four people that actually are going to talk, are going to have the information that's needed. So engage the right people is huge. The other thing that I love is the A. So in C.L.E.A.R, the A is align roles and expectations.
Hmm.
And so what I mean by that is, again, it's helpful for most people to know, oh, I'm going to show up to this meeting and I'm expected to be the one to make the decision. Or I'm going to, come to this team meeting and I know the one thing, even my C-suite teams that I work with, because leadership are teams too.
Hmm.
Um, Oftentimes, if they're not good at debating and discussing and bringing up differing perspectives of whatever it is they're working on, then I might actually say, assign someone to be the challenger. Who's going to challenge our thinking, whether that's in a leadership team and a delivery team? Who's going to be the decision maker? Who's going to be the challenger? What is my role when I come? How do I know the way in which I need to engage when I'm there? So align on who's doing what. What am I going to be doing? What do you expect of me in this meeting? Because otherwise, I'm going to multitask and I'm
Yes.
not going to pay attention. And then again, you need to ask, why am I there? And then the final one is the R, and that's relevance to them. So think of, what's in it for me.
Mm.
If you're having a meeting and you're not sure why you're bringing people, like, why would they care? What are they going to get from this? Is it clarity on priorities? Is it that whatever decision or work or alignment we gain in this meeting is going to help me and my teams and my departments, my organization? be clear on what's the value to them, because if they shouldn't care, they're not going to. Sure, they may show up because they feel obligated. You put them on the invite, and maybe they're not good at saying no yet,
Yeah.
but they're not going to engage. Therefore, we're not, again, respecting the time. They could be using that time to be focused elsewhere. So that's the clear. It's clarify your purpose. Why are we here? List the outcomes. What's going to be different after? Engage the right people who's truly needed. Align the roles and expectations. Who's doing what in this meeting? And the relevance. Know why they should care and tell them why you think they should care. Because again, then I'm more motivated not only to show up to the meeting, but to actively participate in it and help us move to the outcomes that we know we want to have. So that's
Yeah.
clear.
Yeah, that's very clear. I mean, yeah, the framework is clear, no pun intended, because
Oh,
a lot of times the structure helps to drive the meeting and the engagement. I think having a framework, to me, it sounds not just as a framework, but it's also like guiding principles to the meeting. A lot of times we don't have that clarity going into the meeting. Even having someone just take a few minutes to do that ahead of time or prepare so that when people are in the meeting, they know why they're there. That could save a lot of time and also bring the right participants to the meeting. Otherwise, it becomes, as you mentioned earlier, like a lot of participants attending the meeting, but they're not actually participating or contributing to the meeting. How have you used the clear in meetings? Well, how do you presented? Because as we mentioned a little bit ago, there's resistance in, okay, this is how we've always done it, so why do we need to change?
so often what happens, when I'm brought in, one of the first things that I do when I'm brought into an organization is observe how people are with each other, because I want to see what do conversations look like in action. How are we getting work done? How are we what's our relationship with each other? How do we speak to each other? How do we engage, talk to each other, etc. And so I'm often observing, and I'll watch and go and attend meetings and see, what's happening. And then I usually invite the reflection after with the sponsor or whoever's brought me in of, what changed, from the beginning of that meeting to the end? Did you achieve the things you were hoping to? And also listen for when people talk about their pain points, what's frustrating them. Sometimes it's things like, we're never aligned. We leave
Mm,
meetings and we've got multiple different expectations of what we think are the next steps, but everybody's ideas of the next step is different. Or I was working with one group that they had a lot of duplicate work. So,
mm,
everybody had an idea of what was supposed to be done, but not ownership. Who's owning? Who's doing it? So they were, and all those things could have been clarified in the meeting if we had just taken a few minutes, extra minutes, just to be intentional and say, okay, where are we going from here? Who's somebody want to read back? What are our next steps? Who's owning what? Who do we reach out to, et cetera. So
mm,
things like that. When I hear people talking about misalignment, duplicate work, frustration, I'm exhausted. I'm in back to back meetings and I have no time to get work done. Some of my senior leaders, I can't get out of tactical and into the space of
mm,
strategic. That we talk a lot about boundaries. But also, what I bring up is, well, let's take a look at your meetings. Let's do an audit of what meetings do you have this week? Where is your time truly the most needed? If it's a leader, where's the value that you're going to give and bring to your teams, to your leaders? Where's that going to happen? And what are they looking to you for? Oftentimes I'm working with like HR teams that are really helping to roll out kind of from a culture perspective, what do we want to try and do differently? But even if it's not an HR person and it's a leader or a delivery manager or a team member, and they start talking about, oh, I'm so frustrated by this culture of meetings or this constant meetings, et cetera. I'll walk them through the clear framework. It's less about like, oh, do they need to memorize clear? And more about, is there one thing in here that you could try? Like
mm,
your next team meeting, what would it be like to say and tell everybody ahead of time, put it in the invite or send an email and say, here's the outcomes that we want to get to by the end of our team meeting, come prepared and see if people do. And it's, again, it's not the instant, but it's the, how do you share ahead of time the expectation you have on those attending the meeting to show, A, you've thought about the meeting they're coming to, so I respect your time, I'm thinking about it, and B, this is what I need from you in it. And so I'll invite them to think, okay, don't look at C.L.E.A.R at a whole, but rather what's one thing you could try this week and see the impact. Okay, build on that. What's another thing? And oh, by the way, if we want to get to boundaries and you start getting invites and there's no clear list of outcomes, there's no clear reason of why you're invited, you don't have to be a jerk about it, but you can write back and say, hey, I see this meeting, appreciate you thinking of me. What's my role here? What are you expecting from me in this meeting so that I can come and show up in a way that is productive, that helps us get alignment and get to what we're needing. And so maybe it's not an immediate no or a decline,
Yeah.
but it's rather a response back or a quick, Teams chat or a Slack, if you're in Slack, whatever it is, and just say, hey, thanks for thinking of me. What do you need from me here? What's my role in this? What's the outcomes for this meeting? You know what? I'm not the right person for that, but I know who might be. It's this person, etc. So rather than just immediate accepting, it's responding back. So I talk to people about be transparent in the invite, send an email if you need to. They may or may not read it. Maybe it's a Slack because that's how you normally talk to each other, but just say, here's the outcomes I'm looking for. Come prepared. Tell people what you need from them. So-and-so, I need for you to be our challenger. So-and-so, I need for you to be the decision maker. What data points do you need in order to make that decision? Some of those just few extra steps. Again, it does take an extra few minutes out of our time, but the result means the hour you spend in that meeting, you may actually get the work done that needs to get done. And now you're progressing. It's not a drain. It feels good when we tackle the challenges and we move work forward.
This is part of breaking this vicious cycle. I'm thinking as you're speaking, it takes being intentional to break the cycle and to be intentional and think about, okay, why am I saying yes to this meeting? I need to know some information before I accept. I need to slow down to think about that. And if you're constantly in running from one meeting to the next, you have no time to slow down. So that's the cycle,
It's a vicious
a
cycle.
vicious
It
cycle.
is.
But I also like this idea of designing experiments around the clear framework. Like, where do you want to focus? Is it, clarifying the outcomes or clarifying the purpose? Is it listing the outcomes? Is it the relevance? What is it, relevant to who's this meeting relevant to? So, where is it that you want to focus your attention, and then go
Yeah,
from there, right? You don't have to do it
exactly.
all at once.
Yeah. And something else, I'd love your thoughts here, but something else that comes up for me is that I think meetings can also be a reflection of us, a reflection of our leadership style, a reflection of a mirror of our own leadership style. So if we're willing to just go through the motions, should we expect everybody else to change if we're not willing to model something different? If we're okay with the meetings that just happen without clear direction or without clear priorities, what does that say about the priorities I hold for myself? And then how can I expect something different for my team? So I think there's an element of the framework that can help very tactically and practically.
Mm.
And then I think there's also an element of the culture, the leadership, the behaviors of what are we allowing and why are we allowing it? And why not stop that? Why not
Mm.
change that? Why not rise above and demonstrate your own leadership by choosing a different path? I think there's a leadership challenge in that,
Yes.
of showing up differently and taking the extra 5 minutes to think through these things. If I don't have a purpose, maybe we don't need to meet. If I don't have outcomes, maybe we don't need to meet. If I, etc. Like if I think when we do that, we demonstrate strength in leadership. and we show people a different way. So I don't know.
Yes.
What do you think about that?
I was thinking, what's the deeper reason leaders don't, show up differently when it comes to meetings specifically? But I think the meeting is maybe a symptom to a bigger problem. But I think
Yeah.
so. I'm thinking in my conversations with leaders, and even when or when I attend meetings, it's sort of that there is this notion that the meeting is a measure or metric of how busy you are, translates into productivity because I've been on all these meetings. Therefore, I'm productive because I've attended all
Yeah.
these meetings. And then you have questions like, what did you do yesterday, or what have you been doing this week? So, how are you going to point to work that I did focus to get some work done? It's hard to measure that. But if you say I met with this group and this group and that group, then that's measurable. That can be tracked. Like all these, like look at
Yeah.
my calendar. I have all
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
meetings.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a sort of a deeper challenge, and it's hard because a lot of the times, and I'm sure you've seen this with leaders as you speak with them, that the idea of letting go of things that no longer serve them or serve their teams or organizations, right? It's hard because again, they may feel that being needed is something. It feels
Yeah.
good to be wanted and needed, right?
Wanted. Yeah. It sure does.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing, what that comes up for me as you say that too is how do we measure the value that we're bringing to the organization? Because in that, as you were talking about, oh, look at me and the number of meetings I have. And I've heard that so many times, like, look at my calendar. I'm at back-to-back meetings. Well, it takes me back to the conversations that we used to have in the agile world around outputs versus outcomes. And
Hmm.
so it's like, am I just looking at the number of meetings I'm in? Is that really the value I bring? Or is the value I bring in the outcomes, the impact
Mm.
that I'm
Mm.
having on moving the business forward, the impact I have on creating clarity around, aligning on our initiatives or our priorities? And so it's like, if people are looking at, oh, but look at me and look at the number of meetings I have on my calendar, then they're not measuring what matters most.
Mm.
And again, there's the opportunity to your point, to what you were just saying, there's something deeper. It's
Yeah.
like, how do we get to helping people focus on what matters most? And
Mm.
then, you know, maybe they find a deeper meaning in the work they're doing.
Mm.
And it's less about being included in a meeting, but more about the collaboration they got to do with others that moved work forward. And that feels good.
I want to shift gears on
Oh,
something that is probably like a that related, especially I mean no conversation now that does not include AI, right? So you have to
yeah.
bring it into the conversation. What's your take on whether AI is going to help or make meetings better or worse, right? Because I
Yeah.
see a lot of times now every meeting is recorded, it's transcribed, because AI will summarize the meeting, send us the cliff notes or the summary, and therefore meetings now become even in some ways they may be less engaging because people are will probably say, okay, well, I'll read it in the notes or the recording or
Yeah.
the summary, whatever, right? So I don't really have to
Hmm.
pay attention and say much, right?
Yeah.
The good thing is like it frees us to have a better conversation, right? So that we're not really
Yeah.
talking about, taking notes and not paying attention. But again, that's like the pull of is it really helping us pay more attention or less attention?
I actually put as in each chapter of the clear framework, I put a note around like, how do you use AI with
Mm.
this? And so I love that you're headed in that direction, because I think now, keep in mind, I'm an advocate. I use AI pretty much every day. I'm a solopreneur. I need AI, and it's not just to be my admin, right?
Mm.
Like, AI can be my chief of staff if I want
Mhm.
it to be, because I can have it challenge the way I'm thinking on things. So
Mm.
I like it. And what I would say is that nothing takes the place of the human interactions when they're needed in meetings. And you can use an AI to say, I've got this meeting come up, help me audit my calendar. Do I know why this meeting is important? These are the people I've added. And so use AI to then say, do I need this meeting? Who
Mm.
needs to be in this? Like use AI to put your clear framework in and say, help me figure out, like, am I clear on what our outcomes are? Where might there be, like, challenge me in my thinking here and have AI challenge you. Don't just use AI to only take the notes, which is always great. But oh, by the way, if there's individuals who just want to read the notes later, they don't need to come to the meeting. Use that time to go focus on something different.
Right.
But use AI to challenge your thinking about, does this need to be a meeting? And how can I make this meeting the most effective use of our time to get to those outcomes? Use AI for strategy on how many meetings, who needs to be in the right room, what type of subject matter expert do I need, for example, et cetera. I think there's ways to use AI to support the design of meetings, to
Mm.
summarize the notes, to follow up with a meeting, you bet. But in the meeting, in the moment, fresh ideas and fresh perspectives, you can pause and say, hold on a minute while I put the prompt in the middle of the meeting, but I'm not sure everybody's going to love that. That's going to take
Yeah.
up a handful of time. So, you know, I, it's an interesting question. I think
Mm.
AI can support designing meetings to bring about better clarity, but I think there's still the human element of what are the experiences we're bringing, because AI is only good as the input we're putting in, right? So,
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
what are the experiences we're bringing, and how can I create meaningful connection, conversation in a meeting? I don't think AI takes that away, at least not
Yes.
right now. I
Yeah.
think AI can help us with the other things. Let's use it to help us create the clarity in the design, and
Mm.
then use that meeting to create the connection, to create the ideas.
Yeah,
What do
I
you think?
I definitely use AI in my work as well because like you, I'm a solopreneur. I a one person company and it's hard to do everything. So that's
Yeah,
it saves me time in some respect. And it also, I think what I'm saying like it's sort of this paradox because, it could be used AI to not pay attention in the meeting because I'm just gonna get read the transcription, and nobody has time to read after the meeting, right? Once we're done, we're
yeah,
off to the next meeting, right?
exactly,
So yeah.
exactly.
So when are you gonna read or watch any recordings after the meeting is over? That's not gonna happen. But the good thing now is that, as you said, like putting that intention in designing the meeting, because now we can't really say that we don't have the time to design because you can have AI help in the design and give you
Exactly.
some ideas that you could at least get started with, or
Yeah,
at least send, here's the purpose of the meeting or some ideas so that people know what they're, accepting when they show up to the meeting. That frees up some time, or at least give us some more room for other things that we can focus on. Like you said, when we in the meeting we have time to connect or to have a better conversation and not just focus on let's rush through this meeting and go off to the next meeting, not knowing what is it that we talked about, right? Because
yeah,
that is the cycle that we want to break with this, the work that you're doing, the clear the way. So I hope that it really catches on and helps the organizations and leaders see the value in, even though it's a small thing, or at least the meetings is sometimes people don't really think about it in that way, but they are
yeah,
a big contributor to how we operate, right? They create the culture, right? As you, I mean, you
yeah.
said earlier, and I usually, think if people think culture is this abstract thing, just go observe a meeting and you will find what the culture is like.
Exactly, exactly.
This is a really important topic that I could talk about for a long time. As you're sharing this framework with organizations, what are some things that you were surprised by when people saw this clear approach.
Yeah. I think one of the things that I don't know, I could think surprised, pleasantly surprised for me is one of the groups that took the book and was like, okay, we're gonna try some things. Emma said and I mentioned this earlier, but like in the first week of just implementing, trying some different, not the whole framework, but a couple things. They saved 8 minutes. They measured and said they saved 8 minutes and got 8 minutes back in their week. And I know 8 minutes may not sound like a lot to people, but that was just a first experiment. And what I realized is A, I hope C.L.E.A.R catches on. And B, I would love to somehow track and find out, because I don't yet. I don't have the, like, how much time are you saving? Not a lot of people have said, oh, they've measured the amount of time they're saving.
Mm,
This group did, which I thought was fabulous. So when Emma said they saved 8 minutes in their work week, I was like, oh, that's really cool. So I think that's one of the things that really surprised me, is this sense of we get to claim some of our time back, even in just experimenting. So when they start adding on to that, maybe it's more. Maybe they get to 10 minutes, maybe they get to 15 minutes of time back, or maybe they start to see not only some time back, but also work progressing forward the way it needs to be, or something, reducing bottlenecks. Anyway, I'm just realizing that what's super surprising was, the 8 minutes. And I wish there was a way I could have people tracking, the savings they get as they try it, because I think that too would be motivation for others to continue to try. Like, just try one thing and measure and see the impact that it has in your work day. Because I think that can just then build the momentum of people, maybe trying more things.
the book is you titled it "Clear the Way," and really it to me it kind of serves two different purposes. One is clear the way because the clear framework can help you have more clear meetings, but also clear the way to work, because if you have less meeting because you don't need more meetings, then you're clearing the way to do better work and focus work
Yeah.
and deep work, right? So
Yes.
that's a
Yeah.
really another meaning that I take away from from clearing the way. A lot of times it's just meeting after meeting, like you said, and people are exhausted at the end of the day, and they don't feel like they've accomplished what they wanted. And I hear that a lot with my, the conversation that I've had or I'm having is I just don't find the time to do any focus work because
Work.
I'm
Yeah.
constantly in this, sort of treadmill, on the treadmill.
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate your time. Anything that you want to leave the audience with?
Well,
Any
I would
last
just
wise
say,
words?
yeah, you can get the book on Amazon. You can get
Mhm.
it, the Kindle version, the paperback or hardback. I was kind of cheeky at the end of the book, but it's true. I think one of the things I say, my tagline is, you have nothing to fear when your meeting is clear. So,
It reminds me of a quote by Brene Brown: "Clear is kind, unclear is
yes,
unkind." So,
yes.
so yeah, you have nothing to fear when your meetings are clear. So I
Uh,
appreciate your time, Kerri, and it's been great having you.
no, thank you so much. So I really appreciate being here too. This has been fun. I'm like you, we could talk about this for a long time. So thank you for letting me share.
All right, thank you.